All right, hello everybody. We are going to just jump straight into this video and go straight off the cuff because there is a lot happening with the price action since the last video, a lot of which surprised me. But then we have some new clues that I have indicated on the chart, and I want to show you what the latest with the fib circle boundaries, because there's a lot of action along the fib rings. Okay, so first of all, let's just look at the overall. We are on the 4-hour Bitcoin chart. And remember in the last video that we had this declining progression from the high at 1 to the high at 2 to the high at 3. And I thought that 3 being less than 1 but greater than 2 was a confusing situation. And I predicted that we were going to drop down because the stochastic, as you can see right here, was pretty peaked out. But Bitcoin does these things, which are unexplainable, and decided to break out to the upside, jumping up to the next ring in the light blue fib circle set. And so that next ring was the 4.618. We jumped right off of the 4.236 and up it went. One thing that is interesting to me that I've always kind of thought about, these fib circle rings, they almost act like the what do you call them, the covalent rings with an atom. In looking at, say, atomic structure, when you have your protons, your neutrons, and the electrons that will circle around certain rings, and when they jump from one ring to the other, energy is released, and it takes an energy release to push that electron out to the next ring. Now, if you had physics, or if you had your science class in high school and you remember that, you can see a similarity between the fib circles and price action on stocks and cryptocurrencies. It's really remarkable. It's like there is some type of attractive power, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, where the price action tends to gravitate towards these fib circle boundaries when you construct them right. All right, back to the topic. 1, peak. 2, lower high. 3, lower, higher high, yet lower than 1 high, breakout. And then we moved from the 4.236. It jumped right up here to the 4.618. We bounced around this. Everybody was saying, this is it. This is the big breakout. We're headed to 150,000. While I sat back and thought, I want to see what the price line does in respect to this 4.618 fib circle boundary from the light blue set that I constructed a few weeks ago. And what happened? It bounced along this line. It came back. Usually when you retest a line of support, and if it is a quadrant 1 on a fib ring, like quadrant 1 being the top part of a circle, let me draw on here. I've explained this before, but in case you have never seen this before, I'll explain what I mean by these quadrants. So let's just make us a circle. Here's a circle. And now let's chop this circle up into quadrants. So let me get my line tool. We're going to call this a 4-quadrant circle. And now let's stick some numbers here. We've got quadrant 1. Actually, we should call I can't remember which one I call 1, but we'll call this one 2, just for this example, 3, and this one 4. Okay. What I have noticed that happens, and this is just something I discovered, that whenever you have price action that is jumping around, it's really weird. If you are in quadrant 4 and price is moving, up and down, when you cross this line, if it's in quadrant 4 and you hit this line, it's going to deflect off in a negative direction. It's really weird. And then sometimes when you price jump around up here in quadrant 2 and you break out, usually price goes in this direction. But this does not work if you're in a general downtrend like we are in. But if this was within an upswing, within an upward trading channel, you usually break out of quadrant 2 in the positive. It's very strange. So let's clear that and get back to the topic. Whenever you bounce along a line of support, if it's a horizontal line or even a ring, if you keep testing this line 2 or 3 times, the last time it's going to fall. It's going to go through that. It's the same thing with the horizontal line. So let's say we are in a horizontal support, and let's say that we continuously test back to the top of this trading channel. One of these times it's going to hit that point and it's going to fall through. And then let's say you're trending up and you're hitting your head on this trend line. Well, by golly, what's going to happen after you test it several times? It's going to break through, and then this previous resistance becomes a support. Previous support becomes a resistance. And so this is what we see happening here, where we bounce, bounce, and then we fall through the line. So notice that I have this red line here on a negative slope. I was just looking back. Let me turn drawing mode off and pull back and show you what this is made from. All I did was make a line somewhat back here from where we finished the initial parabolic pop on the micro move, where it started to go jaggedy. And then this line kind of intercepts the lowest points on average. It's not perfect, because I figured this could end up being a support. And so if we bounce along this line enough times, it's going to fall through, because it has acted as support for so long. So that's what the red line is there, just to see, for curiosity's sake. Now let's draw again. We have the 4.618 coming up again. We just fell through it. And so now if we bounce around here, it could become a resistance. And if that line becomes a resistance, and if the movements coincide with the stock market, then we could have a nice dive at the end of this formation. Now, let's talk about where it could go if it dives, or where it could go if this 4.618 becomes a support. So to do that, we probably should zoom out. So let's go to the 1 day and make this a little bit more simple to see. It's best to simplify when you can, and when in doubt, zoom it out. All right, so these wicks, you see them touching along that red baseline, the declining, descending baseline. Let's look at a positive scenario first, and let's draw some possibilities here. If we settle on this baseline and it provides support again, and then we jump off of this ring and it hits in a positive direction, and we come back up to the top of this trading channel and break through again, if we come up above the previous peaks 1, 2, and 3, if we beat 1, 2, and 3, and also this previous peak that we just made right here, okay, if this happens, then we're off to the races. But I don't know what the possibility of that is. So we've got to eclipse this peak right here. I didn't draw that line right at the top. But if we get a higher high, then it might be bull market time. So there we go. That's our bullish scenario. Now on the bearish scenario, let's draw some arrows here. And suppose we come back down to this line and we test it. We come back up to this fib circle point here, and then we hit that line again. After bouncing on it 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times, 4 or 5 times, we could fail. Okay, so let's clear this chart and zoom out even more. Let's scrunch this down so we get the whole parallel trading channel. Now let's draw again, and let's just retrace what we've seen thus far. Here we entered the channel a year and a half ago. Up, down, up, down, up, halfway, down. Wiggle around all the way to the top of the channel, which I didn't see this coming, and the big capitulation. And then I definitely did not see this happening, but all the way back to the top of the channel again, and even coming out of it like a flying fish, jumping up through the air, but it came right back down underwater here. So in the bearish scenario, there is a possibility of gravitating towards this ring here on the blue set, or going straight to the bottom of the channel. I mean, we could hit this ring and see something funky. It could go crawling up this ring a little bit and then fly back down. That's very possible. But let's look at this price. So I think that 6,000 is a definite. I think that's the best case scenario on the bearish movement, that this 6,000 level might become the support. And that's only from looking at previous gaps. And I think that we could have a strong possibility of jumping out of 6,000 and starting the bull market. But it is also possible, although a little less likely, that we come down here to the 5,000 level before we jump off and launch into the next bull market. Last but certainly most least likely scenario is that we correct all the way down here to maybe the 4,000, at worst case scenario back into the 3,000 zone. Those should be red, but you get the picture. It's possible. This is the least likely scenario, but it's there. And so the main point of what I'm trying to tell you is this has been the action right here. So that means that anything happening like this is in the realm of possibility. That's what we need to understand. If we've watched this thing bounce up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, this is a possibility. Let's just draw in some more red lines there to reinforce that. You see all this coming up again? This can happen, guys. It can. We can do this until Bitcoin gets ready for that bull market. Way long time ago, I told you all I made a case for 2,500. And I kind of have abandoned that because I think with the current movements, it's least likely. But it is possible. It's within that trading channel. It just depends on when we're going to finish. And so I think that one thing that we can keep our eyes on is, wait a minute, I need to clear, is the big blue set when we get to this last ring here on the blue set. And of course, the blue set, with that ring, we are talking the big 4.618. That's poking its head way out there. So once we're done, when we find a true bottom and I can make another overall trading channel, it'll guide the way for the bull run. And we'll find out where those stops are on the way up. Okay, so that's just my overall thoughts on Bitcoin. Let's jump over, get back on the 4-hour chart and jump over to XRP. I haven't looked at it all day. So let's just give a few minutes of analysis on XRP. This was really interesting how this played out. So this is the one where I told you I was not as bullish and I didn't provide much of a bullish scenario for this because we had 1, 2, 3, 4 declining peaks, 4 lower highs. And almost every time when you make a pennant formation out of this scenario with these repeating lower highs and slightly trending upward higher lows, you will break out of this thing before you get to the apex of the triangle. They always break out before the end. And the possibility was, of course, a premature breakout here, jumping up towards that blue fib line or the light purple, or what happened, which is what we see, breaking out to the downside. So what are the possibilities here? I'm going to tell you what the possibilities are. We're still in bearish movement because if you'll notice, look at these. Look at this. This wick came right down to the red 2.618. Is that the 2.618? Let me scrunch down and see. Yes, that's the 2.618. How does that even happen? And then it clings to this line all the way up here, and then it finally breaks out, just like the electron in the valence rings or whatever you call it. I got to get back into my atomic science so I can make some better correlations with that on the next video. But it broke out of the magnetic attraction of this ring, and now it's propagating sideways, but we still have lower highs going on. We're in another micro down trading channel. Wow. So in the short run, I'm looking for XRP to find that next ring. And that next ring just happens to be about right here on the 3.618 of the light pinkish fuchsia one, or we could jump out here to the blue set, and I think that's the 4.236. I'm not sure. Price-wise, previously, I predicted the possibility of 11. Don't call me Nostradamus. I predicted the possibility of 11 on XRP when we were back here in this trading channel, and it happened. I just didn't think it would happen that fast. I thought we were going to extend this and slowly go to 11. And it went and just took a dump right there. So this is a nice trend here. This is a very... I like this action here. That was impressive. However, this is not, okay, what is happening right here. This was certainly a nice upward trading swing channel in the micro, but will flip. You know, these things flip, and so it looks like it's a pivot, and this is going to start trending downward. So let's zoom out on this, turn drawing mode off, and let's just look at the 1 day and see what we can see real briefly. Okay, so there's the overall downtrend. And now you can see that what's going on right now when you zoom out, look how long we've been in this downtrend. This has been happening for quite some time. Year and a half ago. Here's your trend right here. Plowing into this itty bitty zone that we're in right now that just happens to be hiding between this jumbled mess. So isn't it kind of silly for people to start calling for bull markets when we're not outside of this little bubble right here? We are enveloped. We are completely enveloped within this overall trading channel that has gone on for 1.5 years. And we're really in the micro right here. So we need to be very patient and just kind of wait it out. Eventually it's going to happen. It's going to break out of this, and we'll all hopefully be cashing in our lottery chips. I mean, certain people think XRP is going to be $1,000 per coin, which I think is crazy talk. I think we need to get off of that crack pipe and be realistic, but it'll come up this way. It'll happen very soon. Let's make that green for the dream. But we'll just have to wait and see. So right now, you know, it's okay to buy. I'm probably going to jump back in. If we come down to 15 cents, I'm just going to put my position back together and sit and wait. And if it comes down to 10 cents, 11 cents, and there's a couple people who have made a case for 6 cents, it can happen. 4 to 6 cents is possible. We'll just see. And if it does, throw some more in there. It's a gamble. But you can't make the tremendous 100x, 1000x gains if you're not willing to gamble. And this is a much better gamble than playing the lottery. It is. Is it a guarantee that XRP is going to become the next monetary, the world standard for transfer of money between banks? Even with all the hype that we see, we don't know. When you look at the charts that compare the size of the crypto market to the size of the New York Stock Exchange, to the size of gold and silver, to the size of what's the next up, the derivative market, you know, to the size of the US debt, it makes Bitcoin look like a blip on the radar. And so for people to say that XRP, which is a part of the blip on the radar and the whole cryptocurrency market, that it's just going to overnight take over the world of banking, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But my fingers are crossed. I hope that the banks do adopt and pick it up. In the meantime, we'll just wait and watch. So that's all I have tonight. If you have an idea that you'd like me to analyze, please let me know. Shout out to Carlos. Thanks for the messages, good messages, and hit me up on Twitter. You could follow me on Twitter at CarltonF, and you could request things there or just hit me up here. So until next time, keep your eyes on the prize and be safe out there.